Hey everyone, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. My name's Nathan Masters. Today doing an informational video about identifying Lego pieces. Just kind of a general overview, so I'm going to try to stay out of the weeds, but I do want to go into detail specifically on the minifigure side. But let's save that minifigure for last and just take a look at what you need in general to identify Lego pieces. And then another step past that would be if you perhaps want to know which set they've been included in and the exclusivity there, maybe which ones are rare because they've been in less or fewer sets. And then another thing you can do if you have a database to access is look at price history. So there's kind of two parts to this process. The first part is the physical side of looking at the piece. Hopefully you have it in hand and you're able to really get a close look at the piece itself. And the second part is that database side, which is going to be online. I'm going to use Bricklink today. So if you have that computer and internet, that will help out a lot. Otherwise, you're just kind of stuck with what you can gather with the piece itself. So let's start with this piece here. Just in general, when you have a Lego piece from scratch and you want to figure out what is it and what does it go to, you know, where can I find more information about this piece, you can look at general description in terms of size, and that generally goes by studs. So each one of these studs would be like the base unit, and then if you put this kind of on a map and look at it from the top view, you can see that it's 3 studs wide and 6 studs long. So this would be in rough dimensions, a 3x6, or if you look at it from this side, 3x3, and then 6 in the other dimension. So just starting from that base level description, the size is really the first thing you look at when it comes to Lego pieces. The much quicker way for identification and much more accurate is on the piece itself. You're going to be looking for a number, and this number is known as the part ID. It's the same number for the most part no matter what color the piece is, but the different pieces will have different numbers. So this white engine piece and another one of these but in a different color should have the same part ID, but this engine piece, even if it's tan, and this basketball base will have different part IDs. So the question is, where is this part ID on the piece? And it varies pretty much between every single one, just because every Lego piece is somewhat different. Your standard bricks follow a basic pattern, but once you get away from that, there's just a huge variety of different places this little number could be hiding. So you want to have some good light and possibly a magnifying glass to help you out finding this number, but you're just going to want to start looking around, and little trick would be to start looking on the bottom where it's going to be out of sight for the most part. Also use the reflection of the light to help you out, and you can see we've got some information here standing out and something else down here. So the two things, there's actually 3 things that are going to be on almost every Lego piece. The first one is the Lego copyright sign. Lego is very proud of their development process and the pieces that they have that ownership of. The second thing is some mold information, and that's what you can kind of see over here on the left part. This is related to tracing down problems that you might have with a piece, and specifically on the internal side, they want to know if there's a defect in a certain piece. They want to be able to trace that back to the production origin, and so these numbers help them identify which individual machine that produced this piece, and then from there they can hopefully find if there's an issue with that. The third item, and the one that we are most interested in today, is the part ID. And older pieces are maybe 4-digit, even a 3-digit number. Most modern pieces are a 5-digit number, and our engine here happens to be a 5-digit number. I'll read that off on this one, 30360. And so that's our first bit of information that we have gathered from the physical side, and now we can take that and go to Bricklink. So when you start with Bricklink, I go up here to the browse and go to parts, and now We have kind of a categorical breakdown here, but you can also just start searching. In fact, you can do that from the home page up here as well. So that's what I'll do. 303, did I say 60? And there we have it pop right up. It does have that little thumbnail image to help you identify it a little faster, but there's also a longer name for it as well. And this is very descriptory. The 3x6 number is there that we were talking about earlier. The cylinder to kind of identify that circular structure. But here we are, this is kind of the information we're after. At this point we can look at the different colors that we have, and you can look at all this information, the color year, the mold year even. So I just think it's really cool that this has been built up and is available completely free online to find. This is Bricklink. So now the other side of this would be the price guide, and that is down right here. And this particular color actually hasn't been sold in the last 6 months, so let's go to white, which is the one I actually have for this example. And now we have a few data points to just look and see. For the price has been jumping around, but in general somewhere between $1 and $6 for this specific piece in this specific color. So that's really useful. You can get an average. This is the last 6 month average, and this is generated right here on the platform because Bricklink is also a marketplace, and that's what the default tab is here. This is where you can actually go and buy this specific piece. So as these pieces are bought and sold on this platform, that information is saved and then used to generate graphs like these. And almost every single piece on the database, if it has been sold within this last 6 month window, you should be able to see these pricing trends, which is a very powerful tool and something I for sure wanted to mention in this video. So there you have it. That is kind of the standard procedure for hunting down individual pieces. Start off by looking for that number, and you'll be able to hopefully identify almost everything you come across. Just have a couple other ones here for the sake of looking at a few different examples. And so the transparent canopy, for the most part I find transparent pieces are easier to locate the number because you can actually see it through to the other side. And we'll get this zoomed in here. Some help from that light reflection, and there's a little tiny information just barely visible. Again, when you have that light reflecting off on a shiny patch, that can help quite a bit. So the number for this canopy going to be right up in here somewhere. And the LEGO group, for the most part, when they develop these pieces, they try to put this number somewhere out of the way so that it's not interfering with kind of the external view or what you're going to see in a finished model, but it's also accessible. Like, you should be able to find this without a microscope. The magnifying glass can come in handy sometimes, but even with the unaided eye you should be able to see most of these numbers. So now we have kind of a pattern to follow. We know we're probably going to be looking inside one of these hollow spaces, and we just kind of make our way around to different corners of the piece. And on this one, it is down inside the bottom right corner. My camera does not like extreme close-ups. Sorry about that. You'll have to take my word for it this time. So that one is down in there in that corner, if you happen to have this piece and you're trying to figure it out. And the last two, before we get to the minifigure, are a little bit different. So I did want to mention these as well, and some of the particular things that you will encounter if you are hunting down pieces that are decorated or pieces that are older in general, older LEGO pieces. So let's look at the decorated one, or printed piece. And the first part of the process is exactly the same. We want to find that information contained in the mold number. Dropped it on the floor. And yeah, that's going to be up inside just like we've seen before. So I'm going to pull this away from the camera for a second and get this information. Of course, we can also just search with that general description and go 2x2 slope 45 degree, or even take out the degree and search in parts. Here we go, 3039. So now we have the part page like we were looking at before, but this particular slope actually has this computer screen on it, this decoration. So we need to go one more step into our database here. First thing we're going to do is select the correct color, which is the base color. In this case it is black. And now in this second panel we see there's something for decorated parts, and we're going to just view all. There's only 42, so we can scroll through these pretty quickly. This is one of the popular pieces to have decoration. Sometimes there's certain pieces that have never been printed before, or certain pieces like this will have quite a few different styles. And this particular website even includes the pieces that have a sticker adding some decoration. So the print is more of a permanent fixture on a slope. The sticker is something a little more temporary and more optional for the builder. But here's my piece, the 63 kilometers per hour print, and it has only been printed in black. It seems to have been in 4 sets, so you can actually click this link and look at the sets it's been in. But at the same time, we have this price guide window down here. Unfortunately, I picked a piece that has not been sold in the last 6 months, so I can't give you a whole lot of information, but it has been sold used, and this whole yellow section is the current market. So this is what people are trying to sell it for, but it hasn't actually sold from these stores yet. So even if there's no plot here, you can still gather up some information from the yellow bars, and these are the items currently for sale. It'd be like if you're going on eBay and looking something up. You know, there's something for sale there. This is how much someone wants for it, but it hasn't necessarily sold for that much. But this is the definitive last 6 months used sales. Quantity average is 19 cents. So that would kind of be your starting point for the used. And most of the time, new and used do make a bit of a difference. New is generally slightly higher, but when you get to old pieces like this, it's hard to find people that are selling them in new condition. In general, the quantity average used price is your best bet for pricing individual pieces like this. Okay, the last piece to talk about before we get to that minifigure is an older vintage window. And this is Lego. It has that logo inside these hollow studs up in the top here. There we go. It did focus a little bit. So yeah, we've got this kind of vintage Lego window, and let's see, let's just look for a part number here. Yeah, it turns out this older piece does not have a molded in part number, so we're going to go back to our trial and error method of description search. And in this case, it's pretty straightforward. This is a 1x6x2, so we'll start with that. And we're going to add window to help narrow that field even more, and again search in parts. So pretty quickly pulls up something that looks like what we have right here, so that's good. And it has these, there's a few different options. So this one, these two options show the side ones open all the way through, but take a closer look here, we actually just have the center two windows are open, and the side two have this shutter design on there. So it looks like one of these is going to be our best bet. There's a few different variations, but for the most part this is all the same piece. So let's just go straight to this one. It turns out this does have a 3-digit part number. How they ended up with this part number I'm not sure, but it wasn't directly off of the physical piece, as far as I know. Maybe some of them did have that on there. So 646 is our part number, going back to a 3-digit like I mentioned with this older one. So yeah, we can come down here and do the same thing. What kind of prices are we looking at here? For quantity average used, 15 cents. Current items for sale, quantity average used, 28 cents. People are asking for a little more. And in general, if it hasn't sold, maybe it's because it's priced too high. So just kind of intuitive look at that. On our last piece here, we'll go ahead and click through. and see which 5 sets this one has been in. As an older piece, it's going to be in what we know as service packs, and these were just options to buy multiple copies of a certain type of element. This is something I wish LEGO would do more of these days, but that's a topic for another discussion. Seems like it was available in these 5 sets, and of course as a linked database you can click through and see now we have the focus on this individual set, and you can do a part search and see which all pieces have been in the set. Somewhere in this list is our 1x6x2 red window right there, so it's in that set. Okay, last thing to talk about in this video is minifigures. A lot of people want to price minifigures based on how rare they are, or certain characters are worth a lot more. So it's important to be able to know how to find the minifigures from a database standpoint. You can do the same thing here. Each individual piece will have a mold number on it somewhere. It should anyways. Maybe some heads will not. But up inside this hair element, I know you'll be able to see those numbers. They're usually smaller on minifigures just because the area to put them is smaller, so they have to scale that down a little bit. But I do want to put in a word of warning here with minifigures, because these components are interchangeable and because there are so many different components to build minifigs out of. If you're not sure, that this minifigure, for example, the one I have here, or something that you might have, if you didn't get that directly out of a sealed LEGO box, there's a good chance that it is not a combination of elements LEGO has released as a character before. So, these heads, hair, legs, torsos, they get switched around all the time when you're building. If you bought a bulk lot of LEGO pieces from a kid that just put these minifigures together without regard for the characters themselves, that's kind of the point of LEGO, so I don't blame them. But you're going to end up with minifigures that aren't represented in this database because they weren't sold as that unit. So the first thing you want to do is just kind of maybe take a closer look at what you've got and consider it might not be all original. Even if a character looks kind of complete, that might not actually represent a minifigure. In that case, what you want to do is start looking component by component. Maybe start with the torso or the head, and even when you break it down to a single component, there's still a little bit of searching to wade through. So let's do an example of that, and then if you are pretty confident that you have a complete minifigure, you can actually jump ahead and do something different. But let's start with the component search, and in this case I'm just going to focus on the decorated torso for this character. Back to the home page, back to our parts list. Now I'm going to jump down into these categories and go to the minifigure torso, and from here we can do quite a bit of filtering to narrow this down. The first thing I'm going to do is filter by color, and kind of a working knowledge of what LEGO calls their different colors is going to be really helpful. Your standard LEGO blue is pretty straightforward, but there's so many different variations of a blue color. It's going to be a little bit of trial and error until you figure out the specific shades and what they are named. So I do know that this torso color is called sand blue, so I'm going to click on that and filter out everything related to minifigure torsos that is also sand blue. And in this case we also have a decorated torso. It does have this printed detail on here, so I'm going to fill in that box. And now we have a much smaller list of things to look through and see if we can find a match. We start scrolling, and it doesn't take very long to find a torso that looks pretty much identical to the one on this minifigure. So with this method, we're actually able to find a perfect match for this minifigure and work our way all the way to the name, Owen Grady, the minifig info, and just kind of get back to the top, all starting from a torso. Now of course, if you know the name of the character, you can start with that. You just search the Owen Grady and you'll be able to find all of the minifigure versions of the character that have been produced, and find one that's the closest match to what you have. And like I mentioned, it might be the case that everything is correct except for the legs or the hair, and then you're able to see, which piece you actually need to have a complete minifigure. You can round that up and see what these minifigures are going for. Pricing trends last 6 months, never really getting above $250, but currently for sale new minifigures are averaging almost $4. So you wouldn't be out of the running if you put this up on eBay for $3. And another thing you can look at is current eBay sales as well. But hopefully here, just able to give you guys some starting points for identifying pieces, and then what those are going for on the actual Lego dedicated market. eBay, of course, a lot of people are selling Lego on eBay, but it isn't just Lego. So you won't be able to find these really handy graphs and plots and price info, at least not very easily, from stuff on eBay, which is why I like to use Bricklink for pricing. It really gives you a good idea of where the market is at for a specific Lego piece, and you can do that as long as you're able to find a part number, and then you just work your way down, narrow that scope until you have the exact match of what you're looking for. And you can even do that for pieces without numbers, as long as you're able to give it a pretty good description. So yeah, just keep that stuff in mind next time you're looking up Lego pieces. A little bit longer today, but hopefully covering a lot of bases for you guys. Drop those questions down in the comments and I will try to get back to you. This is a pretty in-depth topic. I might be able to do another video on this topic, so that would make this a part 1, and I could go more in depth in a part 2 if you guys bring out a lot of questions. I could cover all of those in another video. That's kind of where I'm going to end it today, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time on Brick System Brothers.